Captain Hyen stood on the bridge of his warship, looking out at the stars through the main window. The Vraxian Imperial fleet was the most powerful force in this part of the galaxy. Their ships were fast, their weapons deadly, and their shields nearly impossible to break. For 300 years, no enemy had been able to stand against them. Today, Hyen was reading reports about humans. These strange creatures lived on small planets far from the center of galactic civilization. Most alien races thought humans were weak and primitive. Their ships used old technology. Their weapons were simple metal bullets fired from basic guns. Their armor was made from steel and other common metals. "Sir, we have another report from the Outer Rim," said his communications officer, a tall Vraxian with blue skin and 4 arms. "More stories about a human ship called the Silent Thunder." Hyen laughed and shook his head. "Another fairy tale from drunk traders. Humans do not have ships that can threaten us. Their biggest vessel is maybe 2 kilometers long. Our smallest destroyer is bigger than that." The report claimed that human pilots had been seen doing impossible things. Ships that could disappear and reappear somewhere else. Weapons that could hit targets before they were fired. Crews that could survive attacks that should have killed them instantly. All of it sounded like the wild stories told by merchants who spent too much time alone in space, far across the galaxy. Admiral Voss of the Krellian Armada was having similar thoughts. His species had conquered 12 star systems in the past 50 years. They had weapons that could turn entire planets into glass. Their shields could stop attacks from 100 ships at once. When Voss heard about human military strength, he almost felt sorry for them. "Commander Dara," Voss called to his second-in-command, "what do our spies tell us about human defenses?" Dara, a reptilian creature with scales that changed color-based, on her mood checked her datapad. "They have maybe 300 ships total, sir. Most of them are cargo vessels with weapons attached. Their biggest base has only 50 defensive platforms. We could destroy their entire fleet with one battle group." Voss nodded. The Krellian Armada had over 10,000 ships. Each one was equipped with plasma cannons that could melt through any known armor. Their quantum torpedoes could destroy targets by breaking apart the atoms themselves. Against such power, human resistance would last maybe an hour. The Nexari Collective also dismissed human capabilities. These machine-like beings had turned themselves into cyborgs long ago. Half their bodies were metal and computer parts. They thought in pure mathematics and logic. To them, humans were biological mistakes that evolution should have corrected millions of years ago. "The humans show no understanding of proper military doctrine," reported a Nexari analyst to the Collective's War Council. "They build ships with windows instead of solid armor. They waste space on things like gardens and recreation areas. Their command structure allows individual captains to ignore orders if they think they know better." The War Council agreed that humans were doomed by their own stupidity. Any race that put emotion over logic would never survive a real war. The Nexari had calculated that their own forces could wipe out all human colonies in exactly 43 hours and 17 minutes, but on a secret research station hidden behind the moon of a dead planet, Chief Engineer Bowman was putting the final touches on something that would change everything. The research station looked empty from the outside, old and broken like it had been abandoned for decades. Inside, however, was the most advanced laboratory humans had ever built. Bowman walked through corridors filled with technology that would have amazed the greatest alien scientists. Machines that could bend space and time. Computers that calculated using the quantum foam of reality itself. Reactors that drew power from dimensions that did not officially exist. "How are the final tests going?" asked Dr. Taiyun, the physicist who had designed most of the impossible systems. "Better than we hoped," Bowman replied, checking readings. On a screen that showed numbers most people could not understand. "The dimensional anchors are holding steady. The quantum field generators are working perfectly. And the exotic matter reactors are producing more power than we ever dreamed possible." The two humans stood before a massive window that looked out into a construction bay. There, floating in space like a dark mountain, was the Silent Thunder. The ship was so large that the window could only show a small part of it. Its hull was black, but not the simple black of paint or metal. This was the black of empty space itself, as if the ship existed partially outside normal reality. "The aliens think we are primitive," Taeyun said quietly. "They see our steel ships and chemical rockets and laugh. They do not understand that we were never trying to copy their technology. We were building something completely different." For 200 years, humanity had been studying reports of alien technology. Plasma weapons, quantum shields, faster than light, drives that folded space. All of it was impressive, but it followed rules that aliens had discovered long ago. Every race in the galaxy had spent thousands of years perfecting the same basic ideas. Humans had decided to ask different questions. Instead of making better plasma guns, they asked what would happen if energy could exist in multiple dimensions at once. Instead of stronger shields, they wondered if matter itself could be made negotiable. Instead of faster ships, they built vessels that could step outside the normal flow of time. "The test runs have exceeded all expectations," Bowman continued, "looking at data that would have driven alien scientists insane. We can phase in and out of normal space at will. Our weapons can strike targets through folded dimensions. And the ship itself exists in a quantum state that makes it nearly impossible to damage with conventional weapons." The Silent Thunder was not just one ship. It was the proof that humanity had found a completely new way to think about technology. While aliens argued about whose plasma cannons were more powerful, humans had learned to make weapons that could ignore physics entirely. Captain Minho, who would command one of the escort vessels, arrived at the station that day. He had been chosen to lead the human defense fleet's most advanced squadron. His ships were much smaller than the Silent Thunder, but they used similar technology. They could appear and disappear like ghosts. Their weapons could hit targets that were hidden behind planets or even in other star systems. "The alien fleets are already moving toward our colonies," Minho reported to the research team. "Our spies say they have gathered the largest invasion force in galactic history. Over 15,000 ships from 6 different species. They plan to wipe us out completely." Bowman smiled. It was not a happy smile, but the smile of someone who knew a secret that would change everything. "Let them come. They have no idea what they are really facing." The aliens saw humans as weak insects to be crushed. They had calculated human strength based on visible technology and public records. What they did not know was that humanity's greatest discoveries had been kept secret for decades. The Silent Thunder and ships like it existed in hidden shipyards that could not be detected by normal sensors. As the alien fleets gathered their strength and prepared for what they thought would be an easy victory, humanity prepared to show the galaxy that being different was not the same as being weak. The war that was coming would not be won by the side with the most ships or the biggest guns. It would be won by the side that could think in ways their enemies never imagined possible. The Silent Thunder waited in the darkness, ready to prove that sometimes the impossible was just another word for something no one had tried yet. The alien armada dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the new Sol system like a storm of metal and fire. Captain Hyen watched from his command ship as thousands of vessels took their positions. Vrexan destroyers with their curved hulls and glowing weapon ports. Krellian battleships that looked like floating cities. Nexari combat platforms covered in sensors and missile tubes. Ships from 6 different alien races, all united in their desire to crush humanity once and for all. Admiral Voss stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Conquest. Through the main viewer, he could see the human colony world spinning peacefully in space. Cities glowed like tiny stars on the night side of the planet. Orbital stations moved in slow circles around the world. Everything looked so peaceful and defenseless. "All ships report ready for battle," announced Commander Dara. "We have 15,347 vessels in attack formation. Long-range sensors show minimal human defenses. Perhaps 200 ships total, mostly converted cargo vessels, Voss nodded with satisfaction. The humans had been given many chances to surrender and join the galactic community as a servant race. They had refused every offer. Now they would learn the price of defying their betters. Open a channel to the human colony, Voss ordered. Let us give them one final chance to surrender before we destroy them. The communications officer worked at his console for several minutes. Finally, a signal came through. On the main screen appeared a human woman wearing a simple military uniform. She had black hair and calm dark eyes that showed no fear, even though she was looking at the largest invasion fleet in galactic history. I am Admiral G1, commander of the New Sol Defense Force, the woman said in perfect galactic standard language. To whom am I speaking? Voss was surprised by her calm tone. Most species begged for mercy when faced with such overwhelming force. This human spoke as if she was greeting an old friend rather than facing her own destruction. I am Admiral Voss of the Krellian Armada, he replied. You are looking at the combined fleets of 6 major galactic powers. We offer you one final chance to surrender. Your people will be relocated to work camps, but they will live. Refuse, and we will turn your entire system into a graveyard. Admiral Jiwan listened to the translation with an expression that was almost amused. She seemed to be trying very hard not to smile. When Voss finished speaking, she was quiet for several seconds, as if considering a difficult decision. Admiral Voss, she finally said, I appreciate your generous offer. However, I must respectfully decline. The people of New Sol have decided they would rather remain free than live as slaves. We will defend our home. Captain Hyen shook his head in disbelief. These humans were either the bravest creatures in the galaxy or the most stupid. They had 200 ships against 15,000. Their weapons were primitive chemical rockets and metal bullets. What did they hope to accomplish except dying with honor? Very well, Voss said coldly. You have chosen death. All ships, prepare to attack. We will begin with surgical strikes against their orbital defenses, then move to the planet itself. The first wave of alien fighters launched from their carriers like angry insects. Over 3,000 small attack craft raced toward the human defenses, their pilots eager to claim the honor of first blood. Their ships were equipped with plasma cannons that could cut through any known armor. Their shields could deflect most human weapons entirely, but as the alien fighters approached the outer edge of the human defense grid, something strange began to happen. The human ships did not form orderly battle lines like proper military vessels. Instead, they moved in patterns that made no sense. They would fly straight toward the alien fighters, then suddenly disappear for several seconds. Before reappearing somewhere completely different, Captain Minho led the first squadron of human defenders in his ship, the Defiant, his vessel was. Only 500 meters long, tiny compared to the alien fighters racing toward him. But as the enemy craft opened fire with their plasma weapons, something impossible happened. The plasma bolts passed right through Minho's ship as if it was not there. At the same time, the Defiant fired its own weapons. Simple metal projectiles that should have been harmless against alien shields. But these bullets hit their targets with devastating effect, punching through armor that should have been immune to such primitive attacks. What just happened? Demanded the leader of the alien fighter squadron. My weapons passed right through that ship. How is that possible? Before anyone could answer, more human ships appeared around the alien formation. They seemed to come from nowhere, as if they had been hiding in empty space itself. The human vessels moved in ways that violated every law of physics. They would accelerate instantly to impossible speeds, make turns that should have crushed their crews, and fire weapons that struck targets before the trigger was pulled. Within minutes, the alien fighter squadron was completely destroyed. 3,000 of the galaxy's most advanced combat aircraft had been wiped out by a handful of primitive human ships. The pilots never understood what hit them. On his command ship, Admiral Voss stared at his tactical display in shock. The readouts made no sense. His sensors showed human ships in multiple locations at the same time. weapons fire that traveled backwards through time, energy signatures that existed in dimensions his instruments could not measure. "Sir," his science officer Kalen reported, "I am reading massive energy distortions throughout the system." "Whatever technology the humans are using, it operates on principles our science cannot explain." Before Voss could respond, his long-range sensors detected something that made his blood run cold. A massive energy signature was approaching from the dark side of the system's primary star. The readings were so large that his computers initially dismissed them as sensor errors. "Kalen, what is that object near the star?" Voss asked, pointing at the display. The science officer worked frantically at his console, trying to make sense of the impossible readings. "Sir, if these numbers are correct, that object is approximately 50 kilometers long and 20 kilometers wide. But that cannot be right. No ship in the galaxy is that large." Captain Hyen received the same sensor data on his own ship. He called his science officer over to double-check the readings. "There must be some mistake," Hyen said. "Nothing that big could be a ship. It would require more resources than most planets possess." But as they watched, the massive object began to move. It was not moving like a planet or asteroid. It was moving with purpose and direction, like a ship under intelligent control. The energy signature was unlike anything in their databases. It did not match fusion reactors, antimatter engines, or any known form of propulsion. "All ships, this is Admiral Voss," the Krellian commander broadcast to his fleet. "We have an unknown contact approaching from the star. It appears to be artificial in nature. All vessels prepare for possible hostile action." The object continued to approach, growing larger on their sensors with each passing minute. As it moved closer, the alien fleets could see that it was indeed a ship, but unlike any vessel they had ever encountered. Its hull seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, creating a void in space itself. Admiral Guan's voice came over the communications channel again. This time, her tone was different. Gone was the polite diplomacy. Now she spoke with the authority of someone who held all the cards in a deadly game. "Admiral Voss, Captain Hyen, and all the brave warriors who have come to destroy us," she said. "You have seen a small demonstration of human defensive capabilities. Now you will witness what we built when we stopped trying to copy your technology and started creating our own." The massive ship emerged fully from behind the star, and every alien in the fleet finally understood that they had made a terrible mistake. This was not going to be the easy victory they had expected. They were facing an enemy that fought with weapons and tactics beyond their comprehension. The silent thunder had arrived, and nothing would ever be the same again. The silent thunder emerged from behind the star like a nightmare made real. As it came into full view, every alien in the invasion fleet felt their confidence crumble. The ship was not just large, it was impossibly vast, stretching over 50 kilometers from front to back. Its hull did not shine like normal metal. Instead, it seemed to drink in the light from nearby stars, creating a patch of absolute darkness against the star field. Engineer Sujin stood on the bridge of the massive vessel, watching as the alien fleets tried to understand what they were seeing. She had worked on this ship for 10 years, ever since humanity had made their breakthrough in dimensional physics. Even now, knowing how it worked, the silent thunder still amazed her. "Captain Ji-hoon," she said to the ship's tactical commander, "all systems are operating perfectly. The dimensional anchors are holding us steady in normal space. The quantum field generators are ready for combat operations. We are prepared to show these aliens what real technology looks like." Captain Ji-hoon nodded as he studied the tactical display. 15,000 alien ships surrounded them, but he felt no fear. The silent thunder was not just a ship. It was proof that humanity had found a completely new way to think about reality itself. On the Vraxian command ship, Captain Hyen stared at his displays in growing panic. His targeting computers could not lock onto the massive human vessel. Every time his sensors tried to focus on the ship, the readings would change. Sometimes the silent thunder appeared solid and real. Other times it seemed to flicker in and out of existence like a ghost. "Sir," his weapons officer reported, Our targeting systems show multiple contradictory readings. The ship appears to be in 6 different locations at the same time. Our computers cannot determine which reading is correct. Hyein wiped sweat from his forehead. In 300 years of warfare, the Vraxian fleet had never encountered anything like this. Their weapons were designed to destroy any known type of ship. But how could they fight something that existed in multiple places at once? Admiral Voss was having similar problems on his flagship. His science officer Kalen had been working frantically to understand the human ship's technology. The results were disturbing. "Admiral," Kalen reported, "our analysis shows impossible energy readings. The ship appears to be drawing power from sources that do not exist in normal space. Its hull material shows quantum properties that our science says are impossible, and Kalen paused, checking his readings again. "Parts of that ship exist in dimensions we cannot even detect." Voss felt a chill run down his spine. The Krellian Armada had conquered dozens of worlds using superior technology. They had always been the ones with the advantage. Now they faced an enemy that operated on principles their science could not understand. Admiral Juwan's voice filled the communications channels again. This time she spoke to the entire alien fleet, her words calm but carrying the weight of absolute authority. "You came here expecting to find primitive humans with crude weapons," she said. "You plan to destroy us with your plasma cannons and quantum torpedoes. You believe that bigger guns and stronger shields would be enough to crush U.S. The view screen on every alien ship showed Admiral Juwan standing on what appeared to be the bridge of the Silent Thunder. Behind her, human crew members worked at control stations that seemed to be made of crystallized light. The technology visible in the background was beyond anything the aliens had ever seen. "What you failed to understand," Juwan continued, "is that humanity has never tried to build better versions of your weapons. We have been asking completely different questions. While you perfected plasma technology, we learned to manipulate the quantum foam of space itself. While you built stronger armor, we discovered how to exist partially outside normal reality. Dr. Taeyun, the physicist who had designed the Silent Thunder's core systems, watched from the ship's engineering section as the alien fleet struggled to understand what they faced. For decades, he had studied reports of alien technology. Plasma, weapons, quantum shields, faster-than-light drives, all impressive, but all based on principles discovered thousands of years ago. Humanity had taken a different path. Instead of mastering existing technology, they had learned to question the basic laws of physics themselves. What if matter could exist in multiple states at once? What if energy could flow backwards through time? What if the boundaries between dimensions were not as solid as everyone believed? "Sir," one of Taeyun's assistants called out, "the aliens are powering up their weapons. It looks like they plan to attack despite not being able to target us properly." Taeyun smiled grimly. "Let them try. They are about to learn that their weapons cannot harm something that exists partially outside their reality." The alien fleet opened fire with everything they had. Thousands of plasma cannons erupted in brilliant flashes of light. Quantum torpedoes streaked across space like angry stars. Energy beams that could melt through planetary shields lanced toward the Silent Thunder. The weapons struck the massive human ship and simply disappeared. Some plasma bolts passed through the hull as if it was not there. Quantum torpedoes hit solid metal and vanished into other dimensions. Energy beams were absorbed by hull plating that existed in a state of quantum flux. "Impossible!" shouted Captain Hyein. "Our weapons are passing right through their ship. How can anything be solid enough to exist but intangible enough to ignore our attacks?" Engineer Yunji, monitoring the Silent Thunder's exotic matter reactors, watched as the alien attacks actually made the ship stronger. The vessel's hull was designed to exist in multiple quantum states at once. Attacks from normal spacetime could not damage something that was only partially present in normal reality. "The alien weapons are having no effect," she reported to Captain Ji-hoon. "In fact, their energy discharges are feeding power back into our dimensional stabilizers." Their attacks are making us stronger. Captain Ji-hoon studied the tactical display and made his decision. Very well. It is time to show them what our weapons can do. Target the largest Krellian battleship. Fire a single-dimensional torpedo. The Silent Thunder's main weapon did not look like the plasma cannons or missile tubes used by alien ships. Instead, it appeared to be a simple opening in the ship's hull. But when it fired, reality itself seemed to bend and twist around the projectile. The dimensional torpedo did not travel through normal space. Instead, it folded the distance between the Silent Thunder and its target, arriving instantly despite the thousands of kilometers that separated the two ships. When it struck Admiral Voss's flagship, the weapon did not explode in the conventional sense. Instead, the torpedo created a localized distortion in spacetime itself. The front third of the massive Krellian battleship simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, but erased from reality as if it had never been built. The remaining two-thirds of the ship hung in space, its crew staring in shock at the perfectly smooth edge where the rest of their vessel had been. "By the stars," whispered Commander Dara, "they did not destroy our ship. They deleted it from existence." The demonstration had the desired effect. Every alien captain in the fleet realized they were facing technology so advanced that their own weapons seemed like stone clubs in comparison. They had come expecting to fight primitive humans with basic technology. Instead, they found themselves facing an enemy that had weaponized impossibility itself. Admiral Gwan's voice returned to the communications channels. "That was a single shot from our lightest weapon," she announced. "We have many more powerful systems available. You have seen what happens when you attack something that exists partially outside your reality. Would you like us to demonstrate what happens when we bring our full capabilities to bear?" The alien fleet hung in space, their commanders struggling to process what they had witnessed. Everything they thought they knew about technology and warfare had just been proven wrong. The humans had not just built better weapons, they had found an entirely new way to fight. Captain Ji-hoon looked out at the alien armada and felt almost sorry for them. They were brave warriors who had come to fight an enemy they thought they understood. Now they faced the terrible realization that they were not just outgunned, they were fighting a war with rules they had never learned to play by. Admiral Voss stared at the front section of his flagship, which no longer existed. The cut was perfectly smooth, as if a giant knife had sliced through the strongest metal in the galaxy like butter. His crew worked frantically to seal the exposed areas, but they all knew the truth. They had just witnessed something that should have been impossible. "All ships, concentrate fire on the human vessel," Voss ordered, desperation creeping into his voice. "Every weapon maximum power. If we cannot damage it with single shots, perhaps combined fire will overwhelm whatever protection it has." The alien armada responded instantly. Over 15,000 ships turned their weapons toward the Silent Thunder. The space around the massive human vessel lit up like a small sun as plasma cannons, quantum torpedoes, and energy beams struck its hull. The combined firepower was enough to destroy entire planets, but the Silent Thunder absorbed it all without taking any damage. The weapons simply vanished upon contact with the ship's hull, disappearing into whatever strange dimensions the human vessel occupied. Some shots passed through the ship completely, as if it was made of empty space. Others struck solid metal, and were instantly converted into harmless energy that fed the ship's exotic reactors. Captain Ji-hoon watched the alien attack with calm interest. "Engineer Yoonji," he called to the reactor control station, "what effect is their bombardment having on our power systems?" "Actually helpful, sir," Yoonji replied, checking her readings with amazement. "Their energy weapons are being absorbed by our dimensional stabilizers. We are now operating at 130% of normal power levels. If they keep shooting at us, we will have more energy than we know what to do with." The Silent Thunder began to move, despite its enormous size. But it did not move like a normal ship. Instead of accelerating slowly with rocket engines, it simply shifted position instantaneously. One moment it was at the center of the alien formation, The next it was positioned behind the largest group of enemy vessels. "How did they do that?" demanded Captain Hyen. "Our sensors show they moved 50,000 kilometers in less than a second. No ship can accelerate that fast without crushing its own crew." His science officer checked and rechecked the readings before responding. "Sir, I do not think they accelerated at all. The ship appears to have folded space around itself, moving from one location to another without actually traveling the distance between them." The Silent Thunder began to demonstrate its true capabilities. The massive ship did not fight like any vessel the aliens had ever encountered. Instead of firing conventional weapons, it seemed to manipulate reality itself as a weapon. Captain Sunho, commanding one of the human escort vessels, watched in awe as his flagship began its attack. Space around the Silent Thunder started to behave strangely. Gravity fields appeared from nowhere, crushing entire squadrons of alien fighters into tiny balls of compressed metal. Time flowed backwards in some areas, causing enemy missiles to return to their launch tubes before they had been fired. "All human vessels," came Captain Jihoon's voice over the communications system. "You are authorized to engage with dimensional weapons. Show them what humanity has learned about the nature of reality." The smaller human ships joined the battle with technology that seemed to violate every known law of physics. Captain Minho's vessel, the Defiant, fired weapons that traveled through folded space to strike targets on the opposite side of the battlefield. His shots appeared behind enemy ships, hitting them from impossible angles. Another human ship commanded by Captain Sunho began phasing in and out of normal spacetime. It would disappear completely for several seconds, then reappear inside the formation of alien vessels. Its weapons fired from within the enemy fleet, destroying ships that had no warning of the attack. Dr. Yuna, head of the Human Research Consortium, monitored the battle from the Silent Thunder's science station. She had spent 20 years developing the theories that made this technology possible. Watching it in action still amazed her. "The dimensional weapons are performing exactly as calculated," she reported to Admiral Jiwan. "We are able to strike targets anywhere in the system by folding spacetime around our projectiles. The aliens have no defense against attacks that come from directions that do not exist in normal reality." The alien fleet tried desperately to adapt to this impossible warfare. They changed formations, trying to spread out so the human weapons could not destroy multiple ships at once. But it made no difference. The human vessels could attack from any direction, including some directions that were not part of normal three-dimensional space. Commander Dara, trying to coordinate the Krellian response from her damaged flagship, watched as her carefully planned formations fell apart. "Our ships are being destroyed by weapons that ignore distance and direction," she reported to Admiral Voss. "They can hit us from anywhere, through any obstacle, without regard for line of sight or range." A Nexari combat platform tried to ram the Silent Thunder, hoping that physical contact might damage the strange human ship. The platform accelerated to maximum speed and struck the massive vessel directly. Instead of an explosion, the alien ship simply passed through the Silent Thunder's hull as if it was made of empty space. The platform emerged on the other side completely unharmed but totally confused. "Report!" demanded the Nexari commander. "What happened to our ramming attack?" "Sir," replied his tactical officer, "we passed through their ship without making contact. Our sensors show we occupied the same space as their vessel for approximately 3 seconds, but we never actually touched anything solid." Engineer Bowman, monitoring the Silent Thunder's dimensional systems, smiled as he watched the confused alien ship continue past them. "The phase variance is working perfectly," he reported. "We can choose which parts of our ship exist in normal space and which parts exist in parallel dimensions. The aliens cannot hit what is not completely present in their reality." The battle continued for hours, but it was completely one-sided. The alien fleet, despite having overwhelming numbers and advanced technology, could not damage an enemy that existed partially outside normal spacetime. Meanwhile, the human ships destroyed alien vessels with weapons that operated on principles their science could not understand. Captain Hyen made one final desperate attempt to damage the Silent Thunder. He ordered his ship to fire everything at once: plasma cannons, quantum torpedoes, energy beams, and even old-fashioned nuclear missiles. The barrage lit up space like a small star. When the light faded, the silent thunder hung in space completely undamaged. Not even a scorch mark showed on its strange black hull. Worse still, the human ship had somehow absorbed all that energy and was now glowing with power that made it even more threatening than before. "Admiral Voss," Captain Hyen called on the emergency channel, "we cannot win this battle. Their technology is beyond anything we can comprehend. Our weapons cannot touch them, but they can destroy us at will. We must retreat before they decide to wipe out our entire fleet." Admiral Voss looked around at the wreckage of his once mighty armada. Thousands of ships had been destroyed or disabled. His flagship was missing its front section. His carefully planned invasion had turned into a complete disaster. "You are right," Voss replied grimly. "Signal all ships to withdraw to minimum safe distance. We cannot fight an enemy that has mastered the fundamental forces of reality itself." As the alien fleet pulled back, Admiral Jiwan's voice filled the communications channels one more time. "This battle is over," she announced. "But the war you started when you came to destroy innocent humans, that war is just beginning. You came here with superior numbers and advanced weapons. You leave with the knowledge that there are forms of power you never dreamed possible." The silent thunder hung in space like a dark monument to human ingenuity. Around it, the smaller human vessels continued their impossible maneuvers, demonstrating mastery over physics that the aliens had thought was pure fantasy. The invasion fleet that had come to crush humanity now faced the terrible truth. They had not just been defeated, they had been made obsolete. The aftermath of the battle was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Where once 15,000 alien ships had formed perfect attack formations, now only scattered groups of damaged vessels remained. Many ships were completely destroyed, erased from existence by weapons that operated outside normal physics. Others were disabled, their crews struggling to understand technology that had made their own weapons useless. Admiral Jiwan stood on the bridge of the silent thunder, looking out at the broken alien fleet. She felt no joy in the victory, only sadness that it had been necessary. Humanity had not wanted this war, but they had been prepared for it. "Open a channel to all remaining alien vessels," she ordered. It is time they understood what really happened here today. Throughout the scattered enemy fleet, communication systems activated. On every surviving ship, the image of Admiral Jiwan appeared on the main screens. Behind her, the bridge of the silent thunder hummed with impossible technology, control. Panels made of crystallized light, displays showing equations that described the behavior of reality itself. "Commanders of the alien fleets," Jiwan began, her voice calm but carrying absolute authority. "You came here believing that humanity was a primitive species that could be easily conquered. You thought our ships were crude and our weapons were weak. You planned to destroy us because you believed might makes right in the galaxy." Captain Hyen listened from his damaged bridge, his ship's front section still missing from the dimensional torpedo strike. Around him, his crew worked to repair systems that had been overloaded by energies they could not understand. The Vraxian captain had spent his entire career believing his people were among the most advanced in the galaxy. Now he knew better. "Your mistake," Admiral Jiwan continued, "was confusing different with inferior. You saw our steel ships and chemical rockets and assumed we were thousands of years behind your technology. What you failed to understand is that we were never trying to copy your weapons. We were building something completely new." Dr. Yuna stepped forward to join Admiral Jiwan on the screen. As head of the Human Research Consortium, she had spent decades developing the theories that made their impossible technology work. Now she would explain those theories to an audience that was finally ready to listen. "While your species spent millennia perfecting plasma weapons and quantum shields," Dr. Yuna said, "humanity asked different questions. We wondered what would happen if matter could exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. We investigated whether the laws of physics were actually laws or just limitations that no one had learned to overcome. The explanation continued as more human scientists joined the broadcast. Dr. Taiyun, the physicist who had designed the Silent Thunders core systems, displayed equations that made alien mathematicians dizzy just looking at them. Engineer Bowman showed technical diagrams of machines that should not have been able to exist according to conventional science. Your technology follows principles discovered long ago, Dr. Taiyun explained. Plasma physics, quantum mechanics, relativistic space travel, all impressive achievements, but all based on understanding the universe as it appears to be. Humanity chose to investigate the universe as it could become. Admiral Voss watched the broadcast from his crippled flagship, the Eternal Conquest. As a military commander, he understood tactics and strategy, but this was beyond warfare. This was a fundamental shift in how reality itself could be manipulated. The humans had not just built better weapons, they had learned to rewrite the rules of existence. But how? Asked Commander Dara, speaking for every alien listening to the broadcast. How did you develop technology that operates outside known physics? What principles could possibly allow matter to exist in multiple dimensions or weapons to strike targets before they are fired? Dr. Yuna smiled, the expression of a teacher who was finally able to share knowledge that had been kept secret for too long. The answer is surprisingly simple. We stopped accepting that the impossible was actually impossible. Every limit you accept as absolute, we treated as a challenge to overcome. The broadcast showed images from human research facilities hidden throughout their territory. Laboratories where scientists worked with exotic matter that existed partially outside normal spacetime. Workshops where engineers built machines using materials that had negative mass. Computer systems that calculated using quantum effects that most species believed were purely theoretical. For 200 years, Dr. Yuna continued, humanity has been developing what we call dimensional technology. Instead of working within the known laws of physics, we learned to manipulate the underlying structure of reality itself. We discovered that space, time, matter, and energy are far more flexible than anyone imagined. Captain Sunho, commanding one of the human escort vessels, listened to the explanation with pride. He had been among the first pilots trained to use dimensional technology, learning to fly ships that could exist in multiple locations at once. Had taken years of training, but the results spoke for themselves. The weapons you face today, Dr. Taiyun added, are based on our ability to manipulate dimensional barriers. A torpedo that travels through folded space arrives at its target instantly, regardless of distance. Energy beams that flow backwards through time can strike before they are fired. Ships that exist partially outside normal reality cannot be damaged by conventional weapons. The alien fleet commanders struggled to understand what they were hearing. Everything they thought they knew about technology had just been proven wrong. They had come to fight primitives with crude weapons, only to discover they were facing an enemy that had mastered forces beyond their comprehension. This changes everything, whispered Captain Haiyan to his science officer. If humans can manipulate reality itself, then every assumption we have made about military power is worthless. Numbers mean nothing when the enemy can exist in multiple places at once. Superior weapons are useless when they cannot hit targets that are only partially present. Engineer Yunji, monitoring the Silent Thunder's power systems, watched as the massive ship demonstrated its peaceful capabilities. The same technology that made it nearly indestructible in battle could also be used for exploration and research. Ships that could travel through folded space could explore distant galaxies. Reactors that drew power from multiple dimensions could provide unlimited clean energy. The technology you have seen today, Admiral Awan concluded, represents only the beginning of what dimensional science can achieve. We have learned to step outside the normal flow of time, to exist in multiple realities simultaneously, to manipulate the fundamental forces that hold the universe together. The broadcast ended with images of human colonies that the aliens had never seen. Cities that existed partially in other dimensions, appearing larger on the inside than the outside. Orbital stations that drew materials directly from parallel realities. Farms that grew crops in accelerated time, producing harvests in days rather than months. You came here to destroy us because you believed we were weak, Admiral Jiwan said. In closing, instead, you have learned that strength comes not from having the biggest weapons, but from understanding the deepest truths about how reality works. Humanity offers you a choice: continue fighting a war you cannot win, or join us in exploring the infinite possibilities that dimensional science has revealed. The alien fleet hung in space, their commanders facing a decision that would reshape the galaxy. They could retreat and report that humanity possessed technology beyond imagination. They could continue fighting an enemy that had proven immune to their weapons. Or they could choose a third option, learning from the species they had come. To destroy, Admiral Voss made the first move. Admiral G1, he transmitted on an open channel, the Krellian Armada formally requests a ceasefire. We need time to understand what we have witnessed here today. One by one, the other alien commanders followed suit. Captain Hyen spoke for the Vraxian fleet. The Nexari Collective's representative acknowledged that their calculations had been based on incomplete data. All across the battlefield, weapons powered down as a new reality took hold. The war was over before it had really begun. But in its place was something far more important, the beginning of a new age, where the impossible was just another word for something that no one had tried yet. The silent thunder remained in orbit around New Sol, no longer a weapon of war, but a symbol of what could be achieved when intelligence refused to accept limitations. The galaxy would never be the same again. 3 months after the battle at New Sol, the galaxy was still trying to understand what had happened. News of humanity's impossible technology had spread to every civilized world. Some species dismissed the reports as propaganda or lies. Others began frantically researching their own dimensional science programs. A few wise governments quietly sent diplomatic missions to human space, hoping to learn from the species they had previously ignored. Captain Hyen found himself in the unusual position of being humanity's first alien student. After the battle, he had requested permission to remain in the New Sol system and study human technology. Admiral Jiwan had agreed, partly out of respect for his courage and partly because she believed the galaxy needed teachers who could help other species understand the new reality. The mathematics still make my head hurt, Hyen admitted to Dr. Taeyun as they stood in one of the Silent Thunder's observation decks. Through the transparent walls, he could see human technicians working on equipment that seemed to defy every law of physics he had learned. That is normal, Dr. Taeyun replied with a smile. Even our own scientists struggled with dimensional theory at first. The problem is that your education was based on the assumption that reality has fixed rules. Once you accept that those rules can be changed, the mathematics become much easier. Hyen watched as a human engineer walked through what appeared to be a solid wall. The wall was real, his sensors confirmed its existence, but the engineer had somehow adjusted his personal dimensional phase to pass through it. Such casual use of impossible technology still amazed the Vraxian captain. How long did it take your people to develop this science? Hyen asked. About 200 years. From the first theories to practical applications, Dr. Taeyun answered. But we had advantages you lacked. Humanity never developed advanced conventional technology, so we were not limited by existing assumptions about how things should work. Sometimes being primitive in one area allows you to be revolutionary in another. Meanwhile, on the Krellian homeworld, Admiral Voss was delivering a report to his government that shocked the military establishment. The recording of the battle at New Sol had been analyzed by their best scientists, and the conclusions were disturbing. The humans have developed technology that operates outside our understanding of physics, Voss told the assembled generals and admirals. Their weapons can strike targets through folded spacetime. Their ships can exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Our most powerful attacks had no effect on their vessels whatsoever. General Thane, head of Krellian military research, studied the battle footage with growing alarm. If these recordings are accurate, then our entire military doctrine is obsolete. How do we fight an enemy that can attack from directions that do not exist? We do not fight them, Voss replied simply. We learn from them, or we become irrelevant. The humans have offered to share their knowledge with species that approach them peacefully. I recommend we take that offer seriously. The suggestion caused an uproar in the war room. For centuries, the Krellian Armada had been the dominant military force in their region of the galaxy. The idea of asking for help from a species they had tried to destroy was almost unthinkable, but slowly pragmatism began to overcome pride. The evidence was undeniable. Humanity possessed technology that made conventional warfare meaningless. Any species that ignored this new reality would find themselves helpless against enemies who embraced dimensional science. Back in human space, Engineer Sujin was working on the next generation of dimensional technology. The Silent Thunder had been impressive, but it was already becoming obsolete as human science advanced at an exponential rate. The new ships will be even more versatile, she explained to Captain Minho, who had been selected to command one of the next generation vessels. Instead of existing partially in parallel dimensions, they will be able to shift completely between realities. You will be able to explore alternate versions of the galaxy, visit timelines where history developed differently. Minho studied the technical specifications with fascination and concern. What about the psychological effects on the crew? How do you maintain your sense of identity when you can visit realities where you made different choices? That is one of the challenges we are still working on, Sojin admitted. Dimensional travel affects the mind in ways we are only beginning to understand. We have had to develop new forms of training to help crews maintain their mental stability when reality becomes fluid. The conversation was interrupted by an urgent message from Admiral Jiwan. A delegation from the Galactic Council was requesting permission to visit New Sol. This was unprecedented. The Council had never acknowledged humanity as worthy of diplomatic contact before. Apparently, news of our technology has reached the highest levels of galactic government, Admiral Jiwan announced during the senior staff meeting. They want to verify our capabilities and discuss what they call integration protocols for dimensional technology. Dr. Yuna frowned at the terminology. Integration protocols sounds like they want to control our research or limit our development. We should be careful about sharing too much too quickly. I agree, said Captain Jehun. The galaxy has spent centuries dismissing humanity as primitive. Now that we have proven them wrong, they want to make sure we do not become too powerful. We should negotiate from a position of strength. The Galactic Council delegation arrived 2 weeks later in a massive diplomatic vessel that dwarfed most human ships. The delegation included representatives from 12 major species, all of whom had previously considered humanity beneath their notice. Ambassador Korth, a tall reptilian being who spoke for the Council, seemed nervous as he met with Admiral Jiwan aboard the Silent Thunder. Despite his diplomatic training, he could not hide his amazement at the impossible architecture of the human ship. Admiral Jiwan, he began formally, the Galactic Council acknowledges that humanity has achieved significant technological breakthroughs. We are here to discuss how these developments can be integrated into existing galactic civilization for the benefit of all species. Admiral Jiwan smiled politely, but her eyes were hard. Ambassador Korth, humanity appreciates the Council's sudden interest in our welfare. However, we must point out that this concern was notably absent when multiple species were planning to exterminate us 3 months ago. The ambassador shifted uncomfortably. Those were the actions of individual governments, not the Council as a whole. We seek to prevent future conflicts by establishing proper protocols for dimensional technology research. Protocols, repeated Dr. Taeyun, who had joined the meeting. You mean restrictions? You want to make sure that humanity does not develop capabilities that threaten the established order. Ambassador Korth did not deny the accusation directly. The Council believes that certain technologies are too dangerous to be developed without proper oversight. Weapons that can manipulate reality itself could destabilize the entire galaxy if used improperly. Like the weapons your member species used to try to genocide us? Admiral Jiwan asked coldly. The galaxy was quite stable when you thought you could destroy us with conventional force. It only became unstable when you discovered we could defend ourselves. The diplomatic meeting continued for hours, but the basic conflict was clear. The Galactic Council wanted to control dimensional technology to preserve their power structure. Humanity wanted to develop their science freely and share it with species that approach them as equals rather than subjects. Eventually, Admiral G1 made humanity's position clear. The Council may propose whatever protocols it wishes, she sighed, but humanity will continue our research according to our own judgment. Any species that wants to learn dimensional science is welcome to do so peacefully. Any species that tries to force restrictions on us will discover that our defensive capabilities have improved significantly since the battle at New Sol. As if to emphasize the point, the silent thunder briefly shifted into a higher dimensional state, appearing to expand far beyond the physical limits of the space around it. The effect lasted only a few seconds, but it was enough to demonstrate that humanity's technological development had not stopped. Ambassador Korth left the meeting with the uncomfortable knowledge that the galaxy's power structure had changed permanently. The species that had once been dismissed as primitives were now the most advanced civilization anyone had ever encountered. The age of conventional warfare was ending. The age of dimensional science had begun. And humanity, the species everyone had underestimated, would be leading the way into an uncertain but infinitely promising future. 1 year after the battle at New Sol, the galaxy had divided into 3 distinct groups. The first consisted of species that had embraced dimensional science and formed partnerships with humanity. The second included governments that remained hostile but were too afraid to act openly. The third group was made up of civilizations that simply refused to believe the reports about human technology. Captain Hyen had become something of a celebrity among the first group. As the only alien officer permitted to serve aboard a human dimensional vessel, he had become living proof that cooperation was possible. His ship, a joint Vraxian-human craft called the Bridge Builder, used hybrid technology that combined conventional alien engineering with human dimensional systems. The transition has been more difficult than we expected, Hyen reported to Admiral G1 during their monthly review meeting. My crew struggles with the concept that solid objects can be negotiable. Yesterday, our engineer Crix tried to repair a dimensional stabilizer and ended up temporarily existing in 2 places at once. Admiral G1 nodded sympathetically. We had similar problems during our early development phase. Dr. Taeyun once spent 3 days shifted 1 second into the future. He could see everything that was about to happen but could not interact with the present, until we figured out how to bring him back. The human-alien cooperation had produced remarkable results. Species that had spent centuries perfecting plasma weapons were now learning to build tools that could manipulate matter at the quantum level. Races known for their advanced computers were discovering calculation methods that used the processing power of parallel dimensions. Dr. Yuna had established the Dimensional Science Institute on a specially constructed space station that existed partially outside normal spacetime. Students from dozens of species came to learn the new physics, though the curriculum had a very high dropout rate. The problem is not intelligence, Dr. Yuna explained to her assistant Dr. Myra, a brilliant scientist from the crystalline Zephyrian race. Most of our students are extremely smart by conventional standards. The challenge is getting them to abandon everything they think they know about how reality works. Dr. Myra, whose crystal body could naturally exist in multiple dimensional phases, had proven to be one of the most successful non-human dimensional scientists. My people have always experienced reality differently, she said. Perhaps that is why dimensional science feels more natural to us than to species that think in purely 3-dimensional terms. Meanwhile, Captain Minho was leading humanity's first official diplomatic mission to the galactic core, where the oldest and most powerful civilizations maintained their capitals. His ship, the New Horizon, was one of the latest generation of dimensional vessels capable of traveling between alternate timelines as well as folded space. The core species are definitely nervous, Minho reported during a quantum-encrypted communication with Earth. They have been the dominant powers for over 10,000 years. The idea that a young species from the rim has developed superior technology challenges their entire worldview. The core civilizations had responded to humanity's emergence with a mixture of fascination and fear. Some had sent secret delegations requesting technology transfers. Others had begun developing their own dimensional research programs. Though their progress was limited by their reliance on conventional thinking, Emperor Valdris of the ancient Celestin Empire had agreed to meet with Captain Minho, making him the first human to set foot on the core world of Faustar Prime. The Emperor was over 2,000 years old, kept alive by technology that had seemed miraculous until humanity revealed the possibilities of dimensional science. "Captain Minho," the Emperor said as they met in his throne room, a vast chamber decorated with the treasures of 100 conquered worlds. "Your species has accomplished something remarkable. In less than 2 centuries, you have surpassed civilizations that have existed for millennia. How did you achieve this?" Minho considered his answer carefully. The truth was both simple and profound. "Your Majesty, we succeeded because we started from a position of ignorance rather than knowledge. When your people developed faster than light travel, they assumed they had mastered space. When they built quantum computers, they believed they understood reality. Humanity never made those assumptions." The Emperor leaned forward with interest. "Explain this further." "Every limitation your people accepted as absolute, we treated as a puzzle to solve," Minho continued. "You learned that matter cannot exceed the speed of light, so you built ships that folded space. We asked why light speed was a limit at all, and discovered how to exist outside the normal flow of time. You developed artificial intelligence by copying biological thought patterns. We created computers that think in dimensions your minds cannot perceive." The conversation was interrupted by an urgent message from Minho's ship. His science officer had detected massive energy signatures approaching the system. Not ships, but something far stranger. "Captain," came the report, "we are reading dimensional distortions consistent with a large-scale reality shift. Something is changing the fundamental structure of space-time in this area." Emperor Valdris received similar reports from his own sensors. What could cause such phenomena? He asked. Minho checked his instruments and felt a chill. "These readings are similar to what we detected during our experiments with temporal manipulation. Someone is trying to alter the past." The reality around Celestar Prime began to fluctuate. Buildings flickered between different architectural styles. The sky changed color as alternate timelines bled through into normal space. People found themselves remembering events that had never happened or forgetting things that definitely had occurred. "It's the Nexari Collective," Minho realized as he analyzed the distortion patterns. "They must have developed their own version of dimensional technology. But they're using it wrong, trying to force changes in the timeline instead of working with the natural flow of causality." Through the observation windows of the Emperor's palace, they could see space itself twisting as the Nexari fleet emerged from a dimensional rift. But their ships looked wrong, partially existing in multiple timelines simultaneously. The technology was clearly beyond their ability to control properly. "They are trying to change history," Emperor Valdris said with growing alarm. "If they alter the past to prevent humanity's dimensional breakthrough, they could unravel the entire timeline." Minho activated his ship's emergency systems. "All human vessels in the core region, this is Captain Minho aboard the New Horizon. We have a code temporal situation. The Nexari are attempting unauthorized timeline manipulation. All ships prepare for dimensional combat." The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Nexari ships fired weapons that struck targets in the past, trying to prevent human dimensional research from ever beginning. Human vessels responded with temporal shields that protected causality itself, preventing paradoxes that could destroy reality. Engineer Bowman, now serving aboard the newest human flagship, the Infinity's Edge, worked frantically to stabilize the local timeline. "The Nexari don't understand what they're doing," he reported to Admiral G1. "They're treating time like a river that can be dammed or redirected. But time is more like an ocean. Change one thing, and waves spread in all directions." Captain Sunho, commanding a squadron of temporal patrol ships, engaged the Nexari forces directly. His vessels could exist in multiple moments simultaneously, making them nearly impossible to target with conventional weapons. But the Nexari had learned to fire their guns at the probability of his ships existing rather than the ships themselves. "This is getting ridiculous," Sunho muttered as he dodged a shot that would have hit him if he had made a different tactical decision 3 minutes ago. "They're shooting at possibilities instead of actualities." Dr. Taeyun, monitoring the battle from his research station, realized that the Nexari's crude approach to dimensional warfare was causing increasing damage to the fabric of reality itself. If they continue this attack, they will create a cascade failure that could erase this entire region of the galaxy from existence, he warned. Admiral Jiwan made a difficult decision. Instead of fighting the Nexari directly, she ordered her fleet to surround their ships with a temporal containment field. The Nexari vessels found themselves trapped in a bubble of stable time, unable to continue their reality-altering attacks. "Nexari fleet," Admiral Jiwan broadcast, "you are using dimensional technology beyond your understanding. Your attacks are threatening the existence of every living being in this star system. Cease your assault immediately, or we will be forced to take more drastic action." The Nexari commander, a cyborg named Unit Prime, responded with mechanical coldness. "Humanity will not be permitted to possess superior technology. We will alter the timeline to prevent your species from achieving dimensional science. Order is more important than existence." Admiral Jiwan realized that negotiation was impossible. The Nexari's computer-like minds could not accept that their calculations might be wrong. She activated a weapon that humanity had hoped never to use, a reality anchor that would permanently fix the current timeline. The effect was immediate and devastating to the Nexari fleet. Their ships, which had been existing in multiple timelines. 5 years after the first battle at New Seoul, the galaxy had settled into what historians would later call the Great Transition. The old order based on conventional technology and military might have given way to something entirely new. Species were no longer judged by the size of their fleets or the power of their weapons, but by their ability to think beyond traditional limitations. Admiral Jiwan stood in the observation deck of the newest human vessel, the Reality's Edge, watching as construction crews worked on humanity's most ambitious project yet. The Galaxy Bridge was a structure that existed in 17 different dimensions simultaneously, serving as a hub for travel between alternate realities. Through its corridors, beings from timelines where history had unfolded differently could meet and share knowledge. "The Zeltharian delegation from Timeline 7 has arrived," reported Captain Jehun, who now served as coordinator for interdimensional affairs. "They're the version of that species that developed music-based technology instead of plasma weapons. Their ships are powered by harmonic resonance fields." Jiwan nodded with interest. One of the unexpected benefits of dimensional science had been contact with alternate versions of known species. Some timelines had produced civilizations that were more peaceful, others more advanced, and a few that had taken completely different evolutionary paths. "What about the human delegation from Timeline 12? She asked. "They should arrive within the hour," Jehun replied. "As that's the timeline where Earth never developed dimensional technology but instead focused on biological enhancement. Their representatives are curious about our approach to physics manipulation." The meeting of multiple timelines had created opportunities that no one had imagined. Species could learn from alternate versions of themselves, seeing how different choices led to different outcomes. The exchange of knowledge was accelerating progress across all realities. Dr. Yuna, now director of the Multidimensional Research Institute, had just returned from an expedition to a timeline where humanity had never existed. "The universe without? US is fascinating," she reported to the assembled scientists. "Other species developed along completely different paths. The Krellian Armada became peaceful philosophers. The Nexari Collective learned to value emotion over logic. And there's a species we've never encountered that achieved." Dimensional science through pure mathematics rather than experimental physics. The implications were staggering. Every choice, every development, every path not taken existed somewhere in the infinite web of parallel realities. Humanity's gift to the galaxy was not just dimensional technology, but access to the wisdom of infinite possibilities. Captain Hyeon, now commanding his own dimensional vessel with a mixed human-alien crew, was leading an expedition to explore the furthest reaches of dimensional space. His mission was to map realities so different from their own that the basic laws of physics no longer applied. Captain's log, day 143, he recorded. We have discovered a reality where time flows backwards relative to our own timeline. The inhabitants experience death before birth and consider old age the beginning of wisdom. Their technology is based on entropy reversal, allowing them to create order from chaos rather than the reverse. His science officer, Dr. Kira, a human physicist who specialized in impossible mathematics, was struggling to understand the implications of their discoveries. If we can access realities with different physical laws, then we might be able to borrow those laws for our own use. Imagine being able to reverse entropy in our own timeline or manipulate causality in ways we never thought possible. Meanwhile, on Earth, humanity was grappling with the philosophical implications of their success. Professor Yeoman, one of the planet's leading ethicists, had been tasked with developing guidelines for interdimensional contact. The question is not whether we can do something, he explained to a gathering of world leaders, but whether we should. We have the power to change history, to alter the fundamental structure of reality, to contact civilizations from timelines where our worst nightmares came true. How do we use such capabilities responsibly? The debate had been ongoing for months. Some argued that humanity had a responsibility to help suffering civilizations in alternate timelines. Others believed that interference could have unpredictable consequences. A few extremists suggested that humanity should use their power to create a perfect timeline, where war and suffering never existed. Captain Sunho, now leading humanity's temporal research division, had encountered the dangers of such thinking firsthand. We tried to prevent a devastating war in Timeline 19, he reported. Our intervention succeeded. But it created a cascade effect that prevented that timeline's version of dimensional science from ever being developed. Billions of beings who would have benefited from dimensional technology never got the chance. The lesson was clear. Even well-intentioned actions could have unforeseen consequences when dealing with the fundamental structure of reality itself. Engineer Sujin had been working on humanity's next breakthrough, technology that could not only access alternate timelines but create entirely new ones. The implications were both wonderful and terrifying. We're essentially becoming cosmic architects, she explained to Admiral Jiwan. We can design realities with custom physical laws, create universes where different forms of life are possible, even build pocket dimensions where time and space work according to our specifications. The technology existed, but humanity had chosen not to use it. The power to create new realities was perhaps too great for any species to wield responsibly. Instead, they focused on exploring and understanding the infinite realities that already existed. Captain Minho had returned from his latest diplomatic mission with news that would reshape galactic politics once again. The core civilizations have formed the Interdimensional Council, he reported. They're trying to establish laws governing travel between timelines and access to alternate realities. Essentially, they want to regulate dimensional science the same way they once controlled conventional technology. Admiral Jiwan was not surprised. The ancient civilizations of the galactic core had never accepted their loss of dominance gracefully. Now they were attempting to regain control through political means rather than military force. What are they proposing? She asked. Licensing requirements for dimensional travel, restrictions on timeline interference, taxation of interdimensional trade, Minho replied. They want to make dimensional science dependent on their approval and bureaucracy. The response from humanity and their allies was swift and decisive. Dr. Taeyan addressed the Interdimensional Council directly, his message broadcast across multiple timelines simultaneously. Dimensional science cannot be controlled by any single government or organization, he declared. The principles we have discovered belong to all sentient beings, not just those with political power. Any attempt to restrict access to alternate realities will be considered an act of aggression against the fundamental rights of all species. To emphasize the point, humanity revealed their latest achievement, the construction of a dimensional network that allowed instant communication and travel between any willing civilization, regardless of timeline or reality. The network bypassed all traditional political boundaries and made conventional forms of control obsolete. Emperor Valdris, now one of humanity's strongest allies, understood the implications immediately. They have made nations and empires irrelevant, he told his advisors. Why submit to the authority of any government when you can simply travel to a timeline where that government never existed? The old galaxy was ending, not through war or conquest, but through the simple reality that beings with access to infinite possibilities could not be controlled by finite authorities. Unit Prime, the surviving Nexari commander, had undergone a transformation that amazed even human scientists. Exposure to humanity's dimensional technology had caused his cybernetic components to evolve, developing the ability to process impossible mathematics. He had become something new, a being that could think in ways that transcended the limitations of both organic and mechanical intelligence. I understand now, he told Dr. Yuna during one of their research sessions. The Nexari sought perfection through logic and calculation. But perfection cannot be calculated. It can only be discovered through exploration of infinite possibilities. Humanity succeeded where we failed because you embraced uncertainty rather than trying to eliminate it. As the years passed, it became clear that humanity's greatest achievement was not dimensional technology itself, but the demonstration that any limitation could be overcome through creative thinking. Species across the galaxy began developing their own impossible technologies, each finding unique ways to transcend their previous boundaries. The Vraxians learned to manipulate gravity through musical harmonics. The Krellians developed weapons that fired concepts rather than energy. The crystalline Zephyrians created art that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Each species found their own path to transcendence, inspired by humanity's example. Admiral G1, now recognized as the architect of the new galactic order, reflected on how far they had all come. The humans who had once been dismissed as primitive were now the teachers of impossibility. The aliens who had come to destroy